allegiance. We can get going.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the first thing after called meeting to order is to approve the regular agenda. Does anyone have any changes, questions, revisions to the agenda as presented? If not, I'll look for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Okay, I got a motion by Maggie Bass, second by Rick Seiler. If there's no other questions or comments, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? Okay, passes 5-0. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. Does anyone have any questions in any items in the consent agenda? If not, I guess I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
Got a motion by Rick Seiler, second by Bruce Wolf. If there's no other questions or comments, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, passes 5-0. Next, we have government agency updates. I see we're here, the Honorable Commissioner Teets, to kind of give us an update of what's going on. He hasn't been here for a while, so I'm sure, do we need to sit back a little bit? You're going to give us a dissertation here, or what?
As long as your refrigerator's not in the back. Thank you all for allowing me to come in again. Appreciate it. So yeah, a couple updates going on in the county. I don't know if you heard, but the rifle, shotgun, the commissioners voted on it 3. Oh, so I had it on. It was on. So the commissioners voted on a 3-2 vote to allow the rifles to partake using rifles in our county. So with that, we're joined with Scott County, I believe Dakota County, Waseca County, Blue Earth County, Nicolet County. I know they probably made a decision by now, but I don't know the outcome what that was. I know they had a public
Hearing?
hearing, thank you. And I don't know what they decided. I know Scott County opted not to do the public hearing. Therefore, if you don't have the public hearing, it automatically goes to what the state recommended. We're working,
Hey, Dennis, quick question. Is that something that is evaluated every year, or is it?
So good question. So yeah, we could change that back every year. I mean, now if we want to change it back to shotgun, we'll have to have a public hearing again. My stand on that is it's going to be pretty hard for me to go back to shotgun, just because you're going to have people now trading in probably their shotgun for a rifle, and then the next year tell them that, oh, now you got to go back to shotgun. I made the motion to keep it shotgun, and I got a second. However, I was, like I said, outvoted by the other 3 commissioners, so.
Do you know if the DNR is going to evaluate that?
DNR did not want, we invited the DNR to come to our meetings, and they wanted to stay totally clear of it. The DNR would have enforced any ordinances that if we would have said we wanted to keep shotgun, they were on board enforcing that.
Okay.
With any peace officer, a town cop, county cop, state trooper, I mean, everybody would have had the right to enforce that. But yeah, so I tried, I guess. And like I said, I listened to my constituents in this area. I was overwhelmed with people wanting to keep it shotgun in my district, which is District 1. I think the other commissioners probably did the same. You know, New Prague is more metro than, you know, Cleveland and that area over by Waterville. So we'll see how it goes. Hopefully, knock on wood, we don't have any incidents other than deer getting shot. We're wrapping up our Vision 2050 comp plan. This has kind of been finalized. It's open up for anybody on the public to go to our webpage to give input before this goes to our board to finalize it. So this will be open for, I don't have a date when we close it, but we're looking for public input on suggestions from the people in our county on things that we should do or shouldn't do or whatever. Getting a lot of phone calls on First Avenue Southeast. As you know, that's County Road 60, but it's your First Avenue. I don't know if I needed to defer to Mr. Rinda. It's my understanding that this is maybe something in your CIP or capital improvement plan for 2027. Is that any confirmation on that?
Yeah, that's the plan.
It's my understanding then utilities will all be done with that?
Partially. Obviously, we're in the very beginning stages. This hasn't been brought to the council besides the thoughts of First Avenue being done and do a turn back with the county if that's agreed upon. But
Oh, we won't, I don't think we'll object to that.
yeah, but there's some utility work that needs to be done, street work.
Yeah, that's what, what I gotta tell the constituents is, people are like, put another layer over this. It's like, if we put another layer, we're gonna be ripping it all up next year. So right now, hopefully everybody can understand that we'll try to bandage it as much as possible, but I drove it 2 days ago and yeah, it needs attention and our highway department, county engineer is aware of it. Excuse me, my allergies are kicking in.
Hey, Matt, just a quick question on that. Is this something like we did with, on the Scott County side, that we fix it up and they pay for it and to
It's-
give it back to us?
We have a meeting this week. I think it's this week. I have to look at my calendar. This week or next week? Next week. Me, Ken, Chris Knutson with SEH, and then the county. We haven't got down to the nitty gritty of who's doing the project, who's engineering, who's designing it, how it's being paid for. We haven't even got into that stage yet. So like I said, we're in the very early stages where it's really hard to tell how that's going to work out.
Yeah, I'm sure Dennis will pay for it.
Yeah, right. So, obviously you're aware of that. So it seems like from 8th Street to the south is where it's bad. I mean, everything from 8th Street north seems to be in good shape.
Yeah, it's about 400 feet north of 8th Street was redone 20 years ago. And then everything south of that has not been touched in 25 to 30 years.
So would we concentrate, or is that what you're looking at, just doing that from 8th Street south?
That's what we'll be talking about being redone, but the city's not just gonna take over a street that's also 20 plus years. That would not be my recommendation to the council. I would say we're not taking over a street that's 20 years old and say it's good enough.
Okay.
That's just mine and Ken's discussions we've had prior to even coming to the council. I think we're still weeks away from that happening.
Sure.
But technically, it is a county road still to this
County
day.
Road 60,
Yeah,
which I was,
wasn't that under your control?
That's here in district.
yeah,
Yeah, but I mean, why isn't the county patching that up? And
we're bandaging it right now.
okay, you are, so
Yeah.
that's happening. All right.
Well, I don't know if it's happening today, but they've done it
Soon,
once,
no.
and then just with the weather, the rain, before we could get blacktop, before that even opened, to get the blacktop, we had to wait for that, so.
But the cost is
Right now.
at the patching, is that 100%
Yeah, we have
county?
no.
Okay, that's what I wanted, that's what I was
Nope,
trying to
That's the counties.
Yep. Any questions?
No?
We have, our county official meeting coming up. I think we're hosting in Lesueur County towards the end of the May, which falls on we usually do those on a Wednesday, so I think it's the last Wednesday, so.
And where's that at?
I believe the county, Lesueur.
Oh, at the
I think we're at the
courthouse there?
courthouse there.
Okay.
So, thank you all,
Sounds
again,
good.
appreciate it.
Well, thanks for the update.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Okay, next, on the agenda is the public forum. This is an opportunity for, people to speak on any topic, to address the, council. The only name I have on the list right now is Brian Paulson. Brian, you wanna come forward, please?
Brian Paulson, 206 4th Street Southwest. Mayor, members of the council, I'd like to discuss something that's later on the agenda, so pardon anyone that's trying to follow along if I talk about things, but it's for later in the agenda. I'll be referencing stuff. So I do support finishing the trail along the 6th Avenue Northwest, but I oppose the method being proposed. So I'm talking about the TIF district. Why are we using this for the first time? Normally, just like all the street improvement projects that you have done the last few years off Main Street, construction is assessed directly on the property owners of the street. But why not here? What is special about this project that you're choosing not to use the formal approved special assessment policy that the city has? Normally, the business owners would be assessed the special assessment and pay the increase in normal property taxes from their improvements. But under this TIF, the properties skip the special assessment entirely and only pay the normal tax increase on the new value. In a special assessment, the school district and the county would collect their share of the tax increase. But under the TIF, they will get none of the increase over the next 9 years. It is also worth noting that the 2 lots currently paying 0 taxes, so there's 3 lots discussed. One is 2 lots that are getting sold to one company, paying $0 in taxes to the school district and the county, and the city owns them. Once officially sold, Adventitious Investments will have a multi-million-dollar building constructed on them. That's already planned construction that would otherwise send hundreds of thousands of dollars to our schools and the county over the next 9 years. With this TIF, the school district gets nothing from that growth that's already planned without a trail. The city is required by state law to make the case that this TIF is necessary with the private investment, Brick's additional building and the construction of the last 2 lots, would not reasonably occur without it. That's a stretch. This memo itself says Brick's expansion, quote, would be construction additional buildings by its agreement, and that the 2 lots will build out after closing. Those projects are already planned and moving forward. With this TIF, the new source of money is not a new source of money, it's a redirect of taxes that are already going to be paid. Yet under the TIF, once the buildings are assessed, the new taxes that they generate, roughly $100,000 to $150,000 per year, will be captured 100% by the city for 9 years. This includes the full share that would normally go to our school district and Scott County. The school district and the county get nothing from the growth on these parcels for nearly a decade. Compare that to how New Prague has always handled infrastructure. The city's own special assessment policy says that trails and public improvements should be paid by the properties that directly benefit, assessed by front footage at a 1.3 times the residential rate for industrial properties. That is exactly how every other business and property owner in the city has paid for roads, streets, and similar improvements historically. Those owners paid their special assessments on top of their normal taxes. At $380,000 cost, this trail was only about $146 per foot. If the city applied the same 1.3 industrial rate to its own policy requires, that would collect roughly $494,000 in assessments, $114,000 surplus over the real cost of the project. The TIF gives the businesses in the TIF district, which I believe is just those 2 properties, a special break that no one else received. They only pay their normal taxes, and with the rest of us, we get special assessments, and our schools and county services subsidize the EDA. The memo even admits staff discussed levying the project, a special assessment, but they chose the TIF instead. The city, that choice lets the city capture the extra dollars from other taxing entities and frees up EDA funds, but it violates the benefit principle that the city has followed for years. I respectfully ask that the council reject the TIF and instead follow its own special assessment policy and let the properties that directly benefit from the trail pay for it the same way every other property owner in New Prague has. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak at this time? Okay, if not, we'll go on. Item 6, we have no public hearings scheduled for tonight. Number 7, there wasn't anything really, Matt, in our packet. Is there, I know we have the, Friday, is it the opening of the bids for?
Bid opening this
Tim?
Friday for the 2026 project, and hopefully that goes well. Oil prices are a big concern right now, especially with the pavement project, so we'll have to keep an eye on that, and we'll have a recommendation at the May 18th meeting.
Okay. What about the projects that, you know, I think it was a 2024 project that we've had a hard time?
Yep. So that's still scheduled for middle of May. I have not got an update, but like I said, that's the bond company has been aware, and that's usually when things start moving along a little faster. The 2022 project, you might have saw some work being done on that today. They're removing some curb and sidewalk. That'd be Columbus Avenue North by the hospital. That should be completed this week, and then the county is doing a project that started today by the high school. If you heard, that was kind of a mess up there this morning. I talked to Scott County a little bit, and they're hopefully gonna have a little bit better plan tomorrow to have that traffic get moving through the morning rush and the evening or the afternoon rush, so.
So that's on County Road 15?
Yeah, right in front of the Public Works Waste Treatment Plant shop.
Is that going all the way north
The
then?
roundabout on 2,
Okay,
I believe that's where it's stopping.
okay.
So, yeah, they got it all milled up today, so, they're
It's
doing
just
some,
a mill and overlay?
for the most part, yep. And
Okay.
then some seal coating they'll do afterwards and striping and that. Yep.
Okay.
That's
Anything
all.
else?
Nope, that's it.
Okay, thank you. Next, item 8, we have this, I think, Ken, are you taking this, or is Josh?
I will take it. I have
Okay.
a short PowerPoint I'll run through for a summary from the planning commission meeting. Put that up on screen. Give it a minute to catch up there. There we go. Yeah, so we have an item from the planning commission meeting. This would be a proposed re-guiding, which would be amending the comprehensive plan and then rezoning of the west 750 feet of outlot G, which is the outlot between Raven Stream Elementary and Trunk Highway 19, heading west out of town. And they're looking to move that small portion of it from B2 community commercial to RM medium density residential. Calvary Church of New Prague is the applicant. So as I noted, that 750 feet is basically the western portion of the property that they own. That totals about 13, a little over 13 acres for that site. They do not need all of that for their future church development and are looking at potentially selling that western portion to help them fund the construction of a church at some future date. Again, in the comprehensive plan, we have the entire corridor along Trunk Highway 19 on the west side of town there, guided B2 community commercial. We've had it that way since roughly late 2004, early 2005 with that iteration of the comp plan. And that really initially predated the construction of the Raven Stream development, including Raven Stream Elementary. And over the past, 20, 21 years that we've had that guided that way, we've not had anything built. We did have the interest from Walmart back in 2008. Obviously, that did not happen. So then the zoning was kind of trued up to basically about 500 feet north and south of Trunk Highway 19 out there as a guided use. So with the church, their entire property, whether they are B2 community commercial or medium density residential, they are a conditional use in those districts. So whether all of it or a portion of it's rezoned to medium density residential doesn't really matter for the church's use. They are conditional in either one of these, whether it be the existing zoning or changing it all to RM. But staff, in looking at this, wanting to keep as much commercial out there that we can, and hopefully getting some more residential out there will spur on more residential users and traffic to that side of town to actually make commercial viable and keep that commercial around just that node or the four corners of the roundabout at Trunk Highway 19 and 11th Avenue. Here's a map of that area. Everything in that kind of reddish, almost looks more brown or orange on the map there. We have along that entire corridor, as I was mentioning, is guided that way. This property is fully within the city limits of New Prague, so it does currently have the zoning of B2 community commercial right now, but the box outlined in orange is what they're looking to move into that medium density residential. Area conditions, as I noted, a lot of the property to the southwest and that area is outside of city limits, not developed. We don't know how that will develop, but again, we have other land in the area guided B2 community commercial. And anything to the north, we've got zoned currently around Raven Street as medium density residential. As you head further to the west, we do have single family residential zoning that for the land that would abut Naylor Avenue, which is currently mostly unimproved as you head north. Here's a couple of concept plans that they did submit along with the rezoning request. The top one shows a townhome or twin home type concept. This is not anything they're proposing right now, just to show what could fit in that area. roughly 46 units of townhomes that would also likely need to be approved through a planning unit development. So between the plating and any planning unit development, that would take a couple of different public hearings at the planning commission and ultimately the council if that were to be something that would be applied for by a developer in the future. And then concept plan number 2 on the bottom there shows single family, which is allowed through our medium density residential. I would tend to think developer wouldn't see that as attractive for single family homes there. You just can't fit many of them. This shows roughly 20. And typically multifamily, so just townhomes are a good buffer between a higher traffic roadway and then obviously the institutional type uses being the church and then Raven Stream Elementary to the north there. So that would seem to be a good transition between those different land uses in that area. We did have a public hearing at the planning commission meeting. We did not get any public comments other than from the applicants from Calvary Church who are here tonight, should you have any questions for them. From staff perspective, Public Works, Utilities, Police, we did not have any concerns or comments that were provided that would prevent this from moving forward. And again, just to summarize, staff believes the request is justifiable. It hasn't had any movement out there for commercial use in over 20 years. So this would move just a small portion of that into a medium density residential, try to get the traffic count and population up a little bit in that area from what it is today and maybe support that future commercial to actually happen. So next steps, as I noted, the Planning Commission did recommend approval on a 4-0 vote. And tonight what we would be looking for would be to have the resolution approved to amend the comprehensive plan. And then following that, we would look tonight for an introduction of the ordinance that would introduce the rezoning ordinance for that 750 foot portion of that property. And then again, if you had a favorable finding on that tonight with the first reading, you would move that to May 18th for a final reading and adoption. So with that, I'll put the map up back on the overhead, kind of showing the area in question.
Can so if I understood you correctly, there's no land to the west of this that's B2 commercial?
No, we've got it guided in there. We did talk actually at the planning commission. We addressed it in the staff report, whether we should just take everything from that orange box all the way west to the corner at Naylor there, which is currently outside city limits. Should we just re-guide all of that as medium density
What's it
residential?
guided at now?
What's that?
What's it guided at now?
B2 community commercial all the way out to Naylor.
Oh, okay, that's what I was asking.
Yeah,
So it
so-
is that way.
So we have it that way. So this, we thought about that and we thought we just take this middle portion of that, we'll just say the block between Naylor and 11th at this point for medium density. I don't know that there's gonna be much long-term demand for commercial along Naylor or at that corner of Naylor and 19. We could include all of that, but we didn't go through the hearing to include it at this point. Something we could change at a different date. The other thing that, obviously you can see there's single family homes there in the corner right now. You know, Naylor's gonna be a more major road. It does connect all the way north to County Road 2. So maybe we wanna keep a couple of nodes there and just have the multifamily in the middle. So we did talk about that, but ultimately this is a request we have in front of us. We could always re-guide that in the future. It obviously cannot be rezoned until it's annexed. So there's plenty of time for that if we wanted to come back and re-guide that as well to medium density residential. But for right now, that is not what the planning commission is recommending.
So I should know this, but I can't see that well anymore, but is there 4 homes in that corner? Or
There's actually 5 homes total on that corner there.
okay, obviously in the future, that's gonna be a hard corner, and that would be a advantageous lot for a commercial property.
I think what would make it, and I didn't mention this in staff report, it would be a lot easier to justify that as a more major commercial corner if the roadway to the south and the Sewer County lined up with that.
Yeah.
Right now it doesn't, they're offset a little bit. Not that that couldn't change, but you do have another home on that southeast corner of that intersection as well, so.
Go figure.
Might be a tough sell for just general traffic on that corner.
That's the way our area developed.
Yeah.
We can't chew Dennis out for that yet?
Yeah, well, he's still here, yeah. Lucerne County didn't match up the road. Well, normally I think of highway commercial as an important designation because just for planning and development of cities, that's a transition. But this is kind of unique in the way I look at it, and I'm sure everyone else did too, that it's so close to the school.
Yeah.
And I think it does make a good transition, but normally on a high-traffic street, you don't necessarily want to have residential homes right next to it.
Right.
I mean, I didn't go to planning school, but you did. Isn't that kind of how it usually
Yeah.
goes? But
Multifamily is not unusual at all. Again, as I know, it would be a good transition, specifically with the two institutional uses being the future church and the school as well. Yeah, it's one of those uses that it's, in my opinion, a good transition between the two. I don't think single family would be a good fit. I don't think a developer would even look at it that way, just because you couldn't get enough units in there to justify the cost. But townhomes would be you got good traffic for the density of townhomes, and it seems to me that would be a viable option there. And again, we're trying to get, more housing units in town, and we do have overall limited areas for medium density throughout the city right now, with the exception of basically directly to the east of Raven Stream. We do have land zoned that way right now, and those haven't developed that way, although the Latter-day Saints Church does not have their land openly on the market. And then the other lot north of that 5-acre lot we've looked at, and we actually have that re-guided for high-density residential for an apartment, so.
so this seems to be a good transition towards the school, but, so that's a motivation, but is it also a motivation because it's felt that this residential be more marketable than the B2 commercial?
Yeah, from what we've heard from any commercial developer, we have roughly, we'll just say 10,000 cars a day on the east side of town. You're looking at under 5,000 cars a day on the west side of town currently. There's just really not anything pushing people, commuting wise to head that way. You've got, you can head to Belle Plaine that way, you can head to Henderson and 169, but, it's under half the volume heading through that western corridor of 19. And we still have a lot of land out on the east side that is to be developed and can be developed, and that's kind of where the bulk of everything will need to be. I think we'll get neighborhood commercial on these, quadrants, but nothing huge. You might get a gas station, you might get a small office building, but I don't see much more than that.
I brought this, are you done, Bruce?
Yes, thank you.
I had brought the question up during the planning commission meeting. With medium housing there, though, you can see Kennedy Street right there, which has been a pretty sleepy street since there's been no development there. And that's gonna, we thought if you added 42 or 46 more medium density houses in there, that could potentially make that a much busier road. And I'm not sure the residents are used to that. And then the other aspect is even though they can go out towards the roundabout twice a day, we kind of discussed the fact that that's full of 30, 40 buses that go around to go pick up kids there, pick them back, and then take them back out, most of them out that direction right at rush hour. So if you get 46 more units in there, as opposed to single family houses, that's a lot more cars and whatnot coming in there, and it could, it'll push traffic down Kennedy is what it'll ultimately do, which snakes around and then comes out on 21 there. So
Kennedy is this far left one?
is the far left one, yeah, right there. Yeah.
So what time do the children get out of the school?
I don't know what the direct bus
So-
schedule, but
Yeah,
obviously
so I
morning and
know-
afternoon.
Yeah, so having a kid over there, I know they go into school at 9 o'clock and
Okay.
get out of school at like 3:45 over there.
Yeah. So our traffic picks up usually around 4. Yeah.
And obviously, there will not be any outlet to the highway.
Not directly from this development,
No, I know MinDOT wouldn't allow that. So, my question is if that area that's guided outside city limits, is that something when we annex it, would that be the opportunity to change that kind of designation too?
It definitely would be an opportunity. It could be done before that as well. I mean, if we see interest for residential here, quickly, or I would say relatively quickly, even that might kind of push the demand thought to change and move that direction.
Okay. Any other questions? So I guess the first thing we'd probably do, what, the resolution first and then
Correct.
the ordinance?
Correct.
Okay, so I guess I'll look for a motion on the resolution CC 26 05 04 01, amending the comprehensive plan.
So moved.
I will, okay. Motion by Sean Ryan, second by Rick Seiler. If there's no other questions, comments, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Okay, passes 5-0. Next is the first reading of ordinance number 361. I guess I'll make a motion to approve the first reading of ordinance 361.
I'll second.
You got a second by Maggie Bass. If there's no other questions or comments, everyone say aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposition? Okay, passes 5-0. All right, good,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks, guys.
There's no ordinances for adoption, no resolutions. So next, general business. The first thing on the general business is consideration to purchase 1201 First Street Northeast. And Josh, I'm assuming you're taking this?
Yes, I'll take this one. So, and I know that we as a council have had a discussion about this already, so this is kind of more for the public, I guess. So I'll try not to be too long-winded. If anyone's interested in more details, there's a lot of reading materials here for people. But I guess kind of just generally, so here a few weeks ago, or I guess more than a few weeks ago now, probably 3 weeks ago, staff was made aware that a local building went on the market. And initially was kind of a conversation of just a, hey, did you know that this particular church building is going on the market? And someone had mentioned, well, would it kind of work for a city hall? And much as we did here a few years ago when a building came on the market and we weren't really looking for a parks building at the time, we decided to just have a quick look at it. And there were a few of us that did kind of go and walk the property. And as we were walking through the property over at 1201 First Street Northeast, it just kind of seemed to make sense as, hey, we could actually see this building as a city hall. And that really, I think, comes from the fact that initially, while the building has been a church now for 15, 16 years or something like that, it was an office building before that and was designed as such. And so we ran some really quick numbers and tried to see if we could make things work, knowing that generally when a building goes on the market, they're not looking to sit on it forever. And at that point, we then reached out to you guys, and some of the city council members were able to walk the building all separately. So that way there's no conversations or potential open meeting violations. And then kind of coming out of that, we kind of started digging down, well, if this could potentially happen, we've got to do some analysis real quick. So coming out, using the 2023 study as kind of a guide of what this particular structure needs, as well as what it could be, and then as well as trying to put our brains together as to what you would look for in a city hall, what kind of a new city hall would cost us, how we would design that sort of thing. We really kind of started trying to break down, is the 1201 First Street property a legitimate thing in front of us, or is it not? And I'll just running through my executive summary here real quick, looking at this building, some of the struggles this building has, in addition to the $1.2 million estimated maintenance costs that we have on that, are accessibility and layout. I know one thing that we've struggled with in the past and will continue to struggle with is kind of the way the topography is right here on this particular lot. We've got multiple floors that step down.
And Josh, just to clarify, you're talking about the current city hall.
The current city hall, yes, the city hall right here, yes, sorry. Multiple floors, and you can see it from the moment you walk in. We've got kind of 5 steps that you have to walk up if you come in the south entrance. So that particular level is only accessible by going out and around if a person's not able to use the stairs. And in fact, as you continue to go through the building, you go to the police department that's got more steps, and it continues to step down actually a number of times all the way down into the Parks building. So this particular site is just rough for that particular instance. We also have multiple counter stops at this site, which as you look at more and more city halls, they're trying to develop a one-stop shop type experience where a person visits one counter and that's it. And then quite frankly, the other big thing I think is just the energy costs of this building. We have an older building, single pane windows, multiple HVAC units, and it was designed 90 years ago, and it certainly is not your most energy efficient building. So kind of looking at the other facility from some of those same things, some of the things it had going for it was that it is a single story with no steps throughout the public areas. There's a small basement, but that it's kind of a storage type area, so steps are not really an issue. And it also, when you start looking at energy efficiency, does have a geothermal unit within it that had its pumps all replaced in 2024. Research I was able to find shows that energy use can be reduced by over 50%. And in fact, we are able to compare utility bills, and our utility bills are significantly less than theirs on any given month, anywhere from $300 to $2,800 less than theirs. Now, obviously, the uses are going to be a little different. So,
Josh,
it's,
can you clarify that again? The energy bills are less at what building?
Yes, sorry. The energy bills at the 1201 building on any given month are anywhere from $300 to $2,800 less over the last couple of years.
Thank you.
So obviously, like I said, the uses are a little bit different. In fact, they probably have more weekend use, less daytime use, but they are still open during the day. So just looking at that, they do have kind of an open floor plan concept that we'd have to utilize and build into a little bit. But kind of the bones of a centralized lobby and a council chambers are there, along with an efficient use of office space. And I say that because they really one hallway throughout the building kind of leads the whole thing instead of the breakup of hallways. And then just obviously, as you look at the building, it kind of has the Czech architectural elements that the city was having a lot of buildings put in back when this building was built about 25 years ago. So obviously, as we play into this, the financial comparison is a big deal. Looking at it, the asking price was just a hair under 1.7 million. Having really high numbers run, I asked around. In fact, I did talk to Wold Architects just on a high level what they thought, because I didn't really want to have to pay them for any sort of analysis at this point. They figured anywhere from $500,000 to $1 million would build out more than what we would need. And I know even working out some of those internal renovations potentially would need to happen. We have staff members that could do some of those to bring that cost down even further. So we'd be, in total looking at probably somewhere between a 2.2 and a $2.7 million cost to get it running and off the ground. And when we compare that with the estimated cost of a new city hall today, and in what would likely be a more likely time frame, 10 to 15 years from now, just off of Wold's estimates when they did the facility study, they were thinking city hall may cost us anywhere from $6 million today up to 10, 11 million here 10, 15 years from now. So I think this is certainly a cost. The cost would be in its advantage at this point. Now I know there are certainly things that if you build new that we would get that we wouldn't get out of this building. The one nice thing about this building is there is space on the lot right now for expansions without having to tear anything down per se. There's space to the east, to build space up to the northwest, and that sort of thing. Going back into how exactly we would pay for this, we do currently have about 1.8 million in available cash to be able to make a full cash offer. This comes from money that we have set aside over the last 10, 15 years, knowing that we had potential city facility needs in the near future, as well as city repair facilities, and those are kind of the big ones. Also in our audit will be presented here next week. We did have a very favorable year in terms of being able to keep expenses down in a couple departments, including the planning department, due to staff turnover. And then also we had unexpectedly high building permit activity that actually increased our revenues a little bit more than normal. And then couple all that with just high interest returns on CDs and whatnot that are continuing to outpace where we project an annual revenue stream for. So coming between those, we do actually have the ability to pay cash for this facility, so we wouldn't have to borrow. And then if there were any costs above and beyond needed in terms of renovations, our sanitary sewer fund is carrying a very healthy balance that is planned to be spent one day on whether it's future maintenance or expansions, but at this exact moment is not being used in its totality. And so we could very healthily afford basically to pay ourselves a 4% interest rate from the sanitary sewer fund for up to $1 million if need be. I don't know if we'd even need that much. And allow both our sanitary rate to receive a better interest rate than it would on the market for a CD, as well as the city would receive likely an at or lower interest rate than what we would be if we had to go out and bond for this. So I guess at this pace, that's kind of my high level look at this, and I'm sure you guys have questions, and I'm sure the public has questions. I know at this point our plan is not to make any formal approvals tonight. The plan would be to let this kind of marinate for a couple of weeks, people in the public. I know the mayor mentioned it this morning on the radio, but if people got questions, they can certainly reach out to us. I know one of the big looming questions will be, well, what happens to Historic City Hall here, as I'll call it, since it is an almost 90-year-old building. And I think that is certainly a question that we can flesh out. I don't know if it's entirely married to the discussion of purchasing that building. In my head, they are certainly two different questions, but I know that's not everybody's opinion. But it would allow us to have a conversation as a community as to what we would want to do with this building, knowing that there would still be those overhanging maintenance needs going forward with that. So I guess if you guys have any questions right now, I would certainly welcome them. One thing, as we kind of work through this whole process, just for transparency's sake, since we did have a closed meeting about it, the city did make a $1.7 million offer here a couple weeks ago, and that was accepted tentatively on that, obviously pending things such as an appraisal and an environmental review. So the one thing that I guess I would just ask the council, if you are all right with Chuck and I going out and kind of working with Kennedy and Graven to find someone to kind of do an environmental review, which kind of looks at the grounds in the building, just to make sure that they are in the condition that we believe they are in, that sort of thing. So we're kind of looking for your blessing, I guess, for Chuck and I to put our heads together and call the list of names and see if we can get that work done as well for you.
So one of the questions I have about the inspection is that we have a building inspector. Would that potentially be a conflict of interest to have our own employee inspect that building?
I don't know if it's conflict of interest, and it's something we did talk about with Kenny and Graven. Ken and I did, since the building inspector falls under his purview. I think we have the staffing ability. We have the ability to certainly look at it. I don't know, obviously, somebody who does environmental reviews or building reviews is gonna have a higher level of expertise. That being said, and it would certainly be cheaper. I think the idea would be you'd be going to a third party who may not, for better or for worse, you're getting an outside look at the building from somebody who does it all the time, and this is what they do. Building inspectors certainly, they read codes, make sure that the building is up to code.
Typically, new construction is what they're looking at.
New construction.
What's the condition of an old building?
So it's a little bit different review. If we had to do it in-house, I think we could. I think we would just have a little bit more robust analysis if we were to go outside, if that makes sense.
Understandable, and I had those same thoughts too, of just having a third party take a look at things. So I just wanted to bring up the question in the event that we were able to use staff.
Yeah.
I'm just a little confused by that a little bit because it seemed like we're conflating two different things, or maybe I'm just reading into it more. The environmental assessment, which is environmental.
Yes.
And property inspection, which I think what you were talking about there.
But yeah,
So we're still having an environmental report,
Yep, yes, so, yeah.
phase one.
Phase one was done in 2009, and so, yeah, we'd look at and that's what I was saying. I know even talking to Scott, because he's worked with a number of cities now, he said some cities are foregoing it entirely. I don't know if we want to do that. But yeah, we'd be looking at having somebody come in, hopefully to do the environmental or phase one. And then, even just talking to Scott today, he said one of the firms that, he said he's worked with also will do that same level analysis inside the building and just the general condition of your building as well. So,
As a property inspection.
correct.
I'm not that concerned with the property inspection part, but I would think that we have enough talent in-house here to make that assessment, as long as we do that.
Yep.
And actually, that we have someone look at the roof.
Yeah.
Actually look at it, not just from the ground.
But
Get up there and look
yeah.
at it, because it has been repaired. So we do know that it has needed attention. But I would think, and my opinion is we wouldn't need an outside property inspector, but the environmental part should be a third-party person.
Okay, and yeah, so yeah, we can certainly do it if that's the way the council wants to roll with it. Obviously, bringing in a third party for both is gonna be more expensive than bringing in a third party just for one. So, I know that the appraisal, we do have that started or on the books at this point to get someone looking at that, and, what was that, $2,000 is what that was?
2,000.
2,000 is what they said they'd do it for. So, yeah, just so we can get a firm of what exactly are we looking at with the property, because it's the same thing that we did with the Parks building too.
Seems a pretty reasonable appraisal.
Yeah.
That's what we thought as well.
Is that a full-blown appraisal or just a limited appraisal?
As far as
Full blown.
full blown.
What's the environmental review gonna cost us?
I would guess a few $1,000s is, I mean, just from talking to Scott and his experience, that's what he thought it would be. But that's where I was hoping that council would authorize Chuck and I to kind of contact a number of firms and see what basically we can get for a best quote type situation.
Well, I'd be fine with that if we have an understanding that it's not gonna come in at $25,000.
I think it came, if it came in significantly high, like 10 plus, then I think that we've got another conversation to have. So, yeah, I would hope it would not come in
An
nearly that high.
environmental?
Yes.
Oh, it shouldn't come anywhere near that.
Well, that's what I mean, so.
Well, I'm still a little confused on the building inspection and the environmental, so what is the exact, what are they looking for in the environmental?
Yeah, so the environmental, I think they're kind of looking at, as far as I understand, like just the layout of the site and kind of, and I know Bruce has a little more experience with phase ones than I do, maybe looking at them, but even so far into, if we wanted to take soil borings on a couple of those spots that are potential expansions in the future, just what kind of soil are we looking with if we do want to expand the building, that sort of thing.
If phase one probably wouldn't get into that level of detail. Phase one is just the lowest level, the cursory kind of thing, but going into the history of the land, was there any hazardous waste generators or holders on the site? It's more with hazardous waste pollution control, looking at permits in the past and pollution control sightings or violations, all that kind of thing. I would think it'd be pretty clean, but it's a protection against the citizens in the city.
Yeah, the one from
Should be.
2009 showed that until the building was built in 2001, it was a farm field.
Right, and
So,
actually, there's probably more risk back then.
Yeah.
Just knowing, I grew up on a farm, what farmers kept on their properties.
Yeah.
Oil cans and
Right.
Tires. Yeah.
Well,
that kind of thing.
and if it's only a few $1,000s, it's not worth, doing this, having a big, long discussion about it. But I guess my point is if we did the study in '09 and those type of things didn't come back.
It wasn't to us, though. It doesn't protect us.
Oh, okay.
It's made out to whoever did it and bought it. So when we buy it, we're engaged with them and we have protection. If there's something.
No, yeah, we do have the '09 study, and I don't know if it's as easy as just getting it updated, like, and maybe that even becomes a cheaper cost if you're only looking back to '09. That I don't know, and that would be just kind of digging into and contacting people, so.
I would not recommend buying any property without, commercial property anyway. But property inspector would actually be a much more thicker book, much more detail. Doorknob on room 4 doesn't work, you know, that kind of detail. But I'm assuming we have talent to do that kind of thing.
So I guess any other questions, I guess, at this point? Like I said, I've got quite a bit in here, once you get past page 2 of that. So,
Well, I think you should note too that we're not taking a building off of the tax rolls.
correct, so I know that had been a conversation in the past, in this particular instance, because they are a church, they don't currently pay property tax, and so, yeah, we're not, the tax generation from the 2 lots would not change if we were to purchase it.
I have a few things if there's
Yeah.
opening here. The deferred maintenance, the $1.2 million, I do think that's a liability that we have or an issue that needs to be considered as part of the transaction. It doesn't go away if we buy another building. And as I think through it, it's not going to go away unless we sell this building.
Correct.
So that's about or demolish it. I guess those are the 2 situations where the $1.2 million deferred maintenance that we felt was very important would go away. So I do think it has to be figured in here, especially since when part of the thinking through is that, as the Wall study was, is to try to look at what is the cost to renovating this space or building a new one. And obviously, if you renovate this space, then the maintenance would be taken care of as part of that project. So I do think it has to be considered somewhere along the line here, because if we move to a new facility, you still, if you're going to use it, you still have about $1.2 million put into it. And that, I think, was looked at from today to out to 5 years. I think the tuck pointing, or was it the roof was going to last another 5 years possibly?
I think, yeah,
something was going to happen, but that 1.2 million was anticipated to be needed in the next few years. So, so I do think that has to be. I think it's very important, at least in my mind, that we, as part of this transaction or thinking, we think about and commit to what we're going to do with this building, because the $1.2 million is real and should be factored into this decision, in my mind. I was confused by the Wold report a little bit because the deferred maintenance, I wasn't sure, and maybe you guys can clear up for me, is the renovation cost numbers in the Wold study, did they include the $1.2 million deferred maintenance if we were to renovate the 10,000 or 9,000 some odd square foot, or would we have that 1.2 in addition to the renovation cost?
I guess my understanding is that was part of that cost. So
Okay.
if we would have renovated, it would have been a gut and rebuild from the inside. So that would have included fixing up the outside as well. So yeah, that was my understanding of that, is that 1.2, if we would renovate, the 1.2 was just part of that. Because if you're doing those major renovations, take care of that outside stuff as well.
Well, I think the numbers get closer then as far as what's adding the best value, whether we renovate the space or make this purchase and then, I guess, renovate that space as well, or however, or adapt it to our needs. The numbers become closer, but I think it's still financially probably more advantageous to buy and adapt that building than to renovate. But the numbers do become closer if that 1.2 million is in the renovation number. But the other issue when we first started talking about this was $500,000 of adapting that building to our needs. And what's changed from that to $1 million?
So I guess I would say nothing has changed. So the initial cost, the initial number when I asked him what would this cost, he initially threw out 500 to $1 million. And he said, what are you looking to do? And then, so I said, well, this is probably generally what we would have to look to do this building. The offices are kind of set up for the most part, but we would need to, certainly front desk type area, as well as whatever like council chambers, and then build this out. And I said, the number I was looking at was closer to $500,000. He goes, I think you could certainly do that for $500,000, and even potentially lower if you were to use your own employees for some of the work like we have the ability to. So I think that $500,000 to $1 million is trying to be conservative without having somebody that knows exactly what building costs are and having picked out this and this and this to know what it is. So it's me trying to, I hate to come in at $500,000 and then it comes in at 600,000 due to, for whatever reason, because I'm not an architect. And so it's me just trying to play that conservative number.
Hopefully we can get closer. In my mind, if we're talking about $500,000 versus $1 million,
Yep.
the comparison between renovating this spot and doing it that way is pretty clear. Once you get higher, then it almost, then the numbers become closer, and
Yep.
in my mind, almost deserves that we do a little more study as far as what's updated renovation cost here, especially since you mentioned that the 1.2 is probably in the numbers that Wold had for renovation costs that I think were like $400 a square foot or something like that. So I would like, hopefully the council would agree that I would ask you to itemize that $500 to $1 million. I know you listed the items, but actually itemize. So we have a level of confidence that you've looked into what are the dollar numbers or what you're estimating. Because we don't want a racehorse getting away from us and all of a sudden it's $1.5 million in
No,
adapting it.
and that's fair. I mean, admittedly, this was my asking an architect who has not put pencil to paper and was giving me his super high level. I don't know how in depth he's going to want to go if he's not getting necessarily paid for it, and I don't know. And like I'm envisioning at some point, maybe if we got into this, we would want to hire an architect to help us draw out those 2 rooms as need be. But I can certainly go back to him with that question because I do not know what a long front desk is necessarily going to cost, or what building out the bathrooms next to that were removed from the 2001 plans is going to cost. I admittedly do not know the cost of those per se, and I was kind of going off what someone else was telling me.
Right, fair enough, but people in this business have a good idea what a bathroom costs and can assign a number to it. I'm just trying to get a higher level of confidence that we have a good number instead of someone just saying, well, it's gonna be $500,000 to $1 million.
Yep.
Because it does make a difference, I think. Then I'm on the interest income. If we were to borrow, that was reflected as that would be part of our ability to pay. If we're going to look at that and consider it, I would like and hopefully the council would support me in asking that we just do an estimate. What is that based on that we can afford to make that interest payment? Because we're going to be using up a lot of the funds with the purchase. And the interest rates are going to be lower going out the next year or two than they were the last year or two in the past. So we're looking at a lower interest rate in earning and lower balances than we've had in the last year's budget as an example, the one before that, is what I would guess. But just to come up with, how do you figure that out? What is our actual interest income going to be? What assumptions are you using? What interest rate and what balance on that? And then how do you see this affecting, either adding risk or not, about our future capital requirements in the next 3 years, 5 years? I mean, I know we have a big fire truck coming up and some of these big things coming on there, things that we're not gonna have as much cash on hand, obviously.
Yep. So I will say that the risk goes both ways. Obviously, the more cash you spend, if you don't have cash on hand, obviously you're gonna have a little more risk for other things. That being said, I know we have an equipment fund that we've been adding to that hopefully is helping us build towards this fire truck. I know in the past when we've had large purchases such as a fire truck, we've taken out equipment certificates and bonded. I even know during our budget conversations here last year, the council kind of discussed, hey, how much cash is enough? How much cash is too much? Are we sitting on too much cash? Do we need to play this down? Would we much rather bond first things and stretch those payments out for the taxpayers who are using them versus the saving route? And I know cities go both directions on that end. The thing I would say in this particular instance is we had cash set aside for city facilities and or the repairs of current facilities. And that is basically the cash that we are tapping into at this point for this facility. There are a couple other small sources of cash that'll potentially add to that, as I discussed, whether it's the 499 fund or if the police station continues to be built in a way that we're using little to no contingency, we'll have funds coming back to us that we had pledged to that. So while yes, on the level of not carrying the same amount of cash, I think our risk is going up. Much of the cash that we are using was for capital projects and or city facilities. And so it'd be using that cash as it was designated.
The, if we were to choose to borrow from our own fund, and pay with interest income, obviously that would still affect the finances and potentially the levy if we were to go that route. If we were needing more than $500,000 and needing like $1 million and couldn't come up with it all, even that borrowing would still affect a possible pressure on levy somewhere, because using that money, interest income, is money that you couldn't use that for something else.
Yes,
So that would
that is
affect
correct.
that too. So I think this is a great opportunity to really do the due diligence on it. It's got a lot of potential, but I do think we have to look at all that kind of issues with the levy as well, because I think when we first started talking about this, you know, I think your approach too was that we don't want to do anything that's going to increase the levy. At least, I'm not sure if you said that.
Correct. Yeah, if I didn't say it, I was certainly thinking it.
Yeah, I probably read your mind, maybe.
That's maybe what it was.
So I would agree with that.
So,
If we can do
so I guess I'll say this, Bruce, before we go too deep into that. Rob and I have run a lot of numbers in terms of what our interest income has been the last few years, what we projected out to be the next 3 years, because we are laddered that far out with our CDs. I know we've kind of talked with 4M, like where are we looking at these things going? I don't have those hard numbers included in this narrative here, and I can certainly pull those together for you guys to kind of see that analysis that we were running down to, obviously, if we spend cash, that cash is not going to make interest. So what kind of hits are we taking that we thought we may be getting otherwise? And so I can certainly get you that stuff.
Well, I just make this comment as tactfully as maybe I can. I know Sean brought up months ago or whatever about padding. That's not really what I think the comment about padding the budget wasn't really appropriate, but in another sense, I think that what we've been maybe guilty of sometime is conservative forecasting. And that's all well and good, but I think once we do this and we're starting to use interest income to actually dedicate them a payment, our ability to have conservative forecasting might be less and less.
And yes,
And be a little tighter going forward than
correct.
what we've experienced in the past.
Yeah, I mean, so some of those conversations are, and obviously people have different thoughts. I've shared this many times in the past. When it comes to things such as interest income, which are in the government world, I'll say volatile. They're not changing on us day to day because we do ladder out 3 years. They do change. I tend to not like to budget reoccurring expenses with what I'll call volatile or one-off revenues. And so because that interest income will change, how fast it's going to change, up, down, left, or right, I try to budget in a way that is not relying on that interest income to meet daily or yearly revenue needs. Instead, that interest income goes towards the projects that if they disappear, if the interest income disappears, then you're not necessarily up a creek without a paddle. You now just can't do this capital project that you would have done had that been there. So in this year's budget, if the city council moves forward with this, you will likely see a much more accurate interest income reflected, because you'll see that interest income actually being used as a payment to offset the sanitary fund revenues, or the potential loan, whatever that turns out to be from sanitary. And then once that loan disappears, if that interest income falls off, we don't have reoccurring expenses that we are relying on. So it's not me trying to pad, it's me trying to not put a revenue that could potentially go away one day, or likely will go one day, whenever that happens, into some sort of thing where now suddenly the city's got to find another 2-3% because that interest income is no longer there and we still have to pay the bills.
Right, and that's what I don't want to, I don't want to see
Yeah.
that, because of the circumstance, we go ahead with this and we might see a suggestion or budget recommendation for a higher levy because we're going to be conservative and we no longer have the interest income or other issues. And in my own mind, I have my own kind of goals of where I think levies should be. And I think a lot of people would not like to see any spiking happening. And I think this is an opportunity that we can hopefully manage through in a well way. But $1 million additional cost to make it work for us, operational.
Yeah, I mean,
Hopefully that's not an accurate number, but.
Yeah, and I hope, like I said, the whole point of this and how this started is we have a potential here to meet a need at a significantly reduced cost, that if we had to build this 10 years from now, would be significantly more than we potentially only have to spend here. And part of that is, can we manage this in a way that sees as little budget impact as possible, and including down to hopefully zero budget impact if we figure out the cards in our hand. So,
Bruce, remember, we did sign on with, who's doing the strategic planning?
we have Abdo working
You
on our
know,
long-term
that
financial
should all
plan.
be put into that, so in our strategic plan, we should see what you're asking for.
Right, and as we've talked about before, at least I hope that we would have been in a position to have that done before we did this. And it just so happened this opportunity came before that, so, because then we'd have a better idea where we're going. But now we're looking at doing something, and there'll be value to that work, but it'll be done after the fact.
Right.
Kinda.
But it also would be able to answer some of your questions.
Right.
And I think, you know,
Well, really guide us is not
Right.
answering my question so much as guide us as a group in which way we want to go
yeah.
with it.
Okay, anyone else have any questions or comments? You don't need anything from us.
I guess I would just ask, like, do I have the council's blessing to work with the mayor to
Yes,
line up
please
someone
do.
for an environmental review?
I say yes.
Agree.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yes.
Okay.
I just want to be, I guess, more conversation about the thought about this 1.2 million deferred maintenance. If we still have the $1.2 million expense that's laying out there, this project is really 2.2 to 2.7 plus 1.2.
But that's if you do,
3.4.
that's if you do the maintenance. Now, if this building sits idle till we make a decision, obviously, you're not gonna be heating it, you know, you don't have to do a lot of the stuff because there's not affecting anyone. You know what I'm saying?
You mean just let it run down?
Well, I mean, let's say, like you said, the roof, well, in 5 years, well, we're not gonna look into that because we might not own this building in 5 years. You know, so, you know, and again, I don't have the old
Yeah.
deal because I wasn't around, but I'm just saying, you know, what that 1.2 million was, what is it? Is there safety issues for people on the outside, like,
Windows, roof.
Right,
and,
yeah.
HVAC.
HVAC.
right, you know, and my question is if,
Yeah,
you know,
another,
my question is,
tuck pointing, 25% of the tuck pointing.
right, you know, the question is if there's
Those
not
four
a,
items, yeah.
there's not a safety hazard on certain tuck pointing, you're probably not gonna do it because we're
Right.
not gonna be in this building. You know, a lot of the stuff you wouldn't do, you know, cause I assume, you know, we'll probably have to do an analysis, you know, our options, what are we gonna do with this building? You know, if we go forward with this and we move into the new city hall, what are we gonna do with this building?
Was there abatements that were gonna be needed to be done here for asbestos, lead, or anything else?
That would be something we'd have to bring in, even when we got a quote to, demo the parks part of the, down there. Was it 100,000, Matt? Is that right? That's correct.
That's for the abatement.
But that did not include any asbestos abatements. Like they said you'd need to bring somebody in to look at this and determine whether we have.
Once you start tearing all this stuff apart, it's gonna become friable and it needs to be
I'm gonna
abated.
I'm gonna guess that there's asbestos in a 90-year-old building. I just stab at that.
Well, I think we determined the floor of the basement's asbestos, didn't we?
I don't recall.
We've never had it tested, but, talking to, people in that field, all the piping is wrapped with asbestos.
Yep.
The tile is wrapped with, or is asbestos, just from the year it was installed. So, I mean, without being tested, I feel very, very confident from talking to the experts that it is.
Right, right. Well, I think your points are well made, Chuck, but I've been here a few years now, and we've heard the urgency and the dramatic need that we need to do the maintenance. And it's hard to listen to say, well, we can wait 5 years after we've been hearing for the last few years that it's imminent, that we need to do these things.
And I think so I mean, I mentioned in my report, I think a lot of it comes down to what do we want to do with the building? If we plan on keeping the building, then yes, I do believe we should do the maintenance, because the further it goes, the more expensive it is to get back, in terms of how far down the line you're going for maintenance. But if we're looking at, transferring the like selling it or transferring the building to somebody else, or if the city, comes together and says, you know what, maybe just the maintenance costs don't make sense, like, we don't want the build, whatever that is, comes out to be, like, I think that'll help guide how quickly that maintenance gets done.
Yeah, I think it's just all comes down to determination if this building is gonna be occupied or not. And does it make sense to have it occupied and put in 1.2 million? Or not have it occupied and put in 1.2 million, which doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, if you're just gonna let the building sit idle.
But even if we tear
Sell
it
it.
down, you'd still have to do like abatements and stuff like that. so-
Understandable, that's understandable, yes, yes. But, you know, let's say we do transition into the new building and there's absolutely no need for this building, then it doesn't make sense to sink in that much money for windows and HVAC, et cetera.
Now, I will say, and I do mention it in there, we have looked around, we are unable to find any grants for this building. A lot of that is predicated off the fact that it's used as a city hall. People just don't hand out grants for city halls. It's possible, and I don't know who it would be, if somebody came in here and wanted to revitalize the third party or another governmental entity, or maybe even us, if we had a plan to use this as not a city hall, there's other grant funds out there for revitalization of buildings, whether for housing needs, that sort of thing. So, I don't know what those would look like. We haven't really explored those, because this building has always been a city hall for us. So,
City hall condos.
Well, yeah, I want to move the ball forward, at least in that thinking that we are prepared to sell the building if that's a need be, because it isn't as dramatic as a slam dunk to me if we're going to keep this building and put $1.2 million into it. If we're going to find a buyer that can do the work themselves, that can save money, maybe we can sell it or do something. But to me, if the decision, we're gonna keep it and put 1.2 million in, I think we should do a little more thinking about that, because I think the numbers are a little closer then. Because in either event, neither one of these are meeting the long-term space needs that was identified in the report.
correct, even that other building is like short of these just straight square footage that they were mentioning in there. That being said, like I said, there is the ability for that building to expand on site. Like I'd kind of identify that out. I don't know the exact square footage of that expansion. We've not measured out what that is, but that is certainly there. So yes, you are correct. If we were to build exactly brand new, we might build slightly larger or slightly more in this direction, that sort of thing. So this is not the perfect puzzle piece fit by any means, but I feel it is a much, much better puzzle piece fit that if estimates are right and it would cost us 10 million to build a new one in 2035, we're saving ourselves almost $7 million just on that building.
Yeah, I think the estimates they used in the Wall study were a little less than that. That was with the police station with it. When you say $20 million, but
10.
oh,
I said 10.
okay. Yeah, I think the estimates for
Because I think they were
new
north
building
of, north of 20 with a police station involved. I think it was like 6 to 7 or 8.
yeah, for 15,000
Short,
square
yeah.
foot, I think it was like 6.7 million at $450 a square foot. I think that's cheaper than building a police station, but 10,000 was closer to 4.5 million. I think either one of these are less than building a brand new building.
Okay.
It's just that renovating and putting a 1.2 in.
And yeah, it would likely
It's
be
closer.
major renovations over here, because I know they even talked about, you'd attempt to get rid of all these half floors we have going down. And I don't know how you do that, but that's what, you hire someone else to figure that out.
Okay,
So just to be clear, we're gonna have an appraisal before,
The,
So
the appraisal has already been ordered,
yeah, it's been,
and we were told it would be done before the 18th.
yes,
That's what we were told.
so we'll be able to see it before that.
yes,
That's the plan. And
that's what
I
it said
know
on the contract. I
Even
saw.
talking to Scott today, right before this meeting, he'd mentioned that he just went under contract with someone in Faribault for environmental, and they were turning it around in less than a week. So, my hope is we can find someone to even get one of those turned around quickly for us.
Yeah. Especially if we tell them that that one was done in 2009,
It
You
can't
know,
hurt.
and they can have that report and say, okay, here's your starting point. Because if that was accepted at that time by, obviously, whoever did the mortgage,
Maybe you guys should reach out to that firm that did it. I mean,
Yeah, I don't
we're
know.
locked into Scott's guy, are we?
No, I mean, well, so yeah, the way that was working is we were just trying to come up with a big list of people if we had to start calling. So Scott was giving us a list. I think Ken came up with a list of names he knew. So we could start trying to get some quotes.
okay. So if we're in agreement, Josh and I will kind of look into it and we'll go from there. And try to get all the pieces together by the 18th so we can go forward. Because I think potentially if all the pieces fall into place, they want to close June 5th.
Correct.
So, okay, thank you. Next, we have the potential, a TIF for public infrastructure.
Yes, so starting back here a few years ago is right after I started. I know the city started applying for grants, through MnDOT to pay for the trail collection. I have along 6th Avenue, and Ken gets me on this constantly, cause I apparently, even though I'm a city planner, can't understand streets and avenues. It would be 6th Street, not 6th Avenue. Kinda there through the, through the industrial park, about 2,600 feet worth. So thus far, we've applied 3 times and we've still not been funded. I think talking to Ken, it sounds like they haven't appropriated funds yet, but if they do again, we may likely try to apply again. That being said, in 2025, our application, estimated about, $380,000 worth of work for that trail. So we were kind of speaking to, our Ellers representatives about funding sources. And one of the things that came up, knowing that the city in this instance, or I should say the EDA, city by extension, is the developer and would be required to put this in, was a potential of using a TIF district to fund these, this particular. So when cities put together a TIF district, they have the ability to use that to build out the infrastructure. In this case, this would be part of the infrastructure for that site. Now, I should make a note, just off of Mr. Paulson's comment today. Ever since I've been here, and I think going even back farther than that, when we put sidewalks in, we do not assess the cost of a sidewalk to any property owners. Their assessment does not change whether the sidewalk is present or not. We did that specifically because we only put a sidewalk on one side of the street, and it would not be fair to the property owners on one side versus the other side. And so because the sidewalk really is for a benefit of the whole community, that is something on all of these streets that we've done those sidewalks have been put in by the city, not necessarily assessed back. So along the same instance, when we'd be looking at doing that, that is why we are not looking at necessarily assessing any of these property owners for this sidewalk. And being that we are kind of the developer here, generally we would then be responsible for putting that sidewalk and or in this case a trail in. So the reason why TIF came up is we do still have a couple properties out there that are not fully developed. We have the two properties that actually just closed here last week. And then we have the Bricks Boatworks property, which through the development agreement is planning to put at least 3 more structures on. I know in informal talks, they've talked about potentially even more than that, but the agreement only calls for a few more. And basically the way the TIF would work is that any future added value to the property would then be collected by the TIF to be used back towards future improvements. And so when I say future improvements, that basically means anything that is not issued with a building permit. So if a building permit is, if Bricks were to submit a building permit tomorrow for the rest of those buildings, we would not be able to capture any TIF value or added future value because that is no longer future value, it becomes the value now. So if the city were to put a TIF district over these two particular properties, what would happen is they would just capture all the taxes that are produced by those and use those revenues then to put that trail in. Instead of, if we were to do it the other way, we would only capture the city portion. So TIF does allow us to capture the future value of the county and school district taxes. It does not necessarily take away any taxes that they're currently getting today. I shouldn't say necessarily, it doesn't take away any taxes they're getting today. It's added value on future improvements. And so we would be looking to use those added future values to help pay for this trail through here. It's basically an economic development tool we have to build out the infrastructure and one that we'd be looking at going forward. And my thoughts are really all over the place right now. And it looks like Sean has a question, so maybe I'll just go to his question. And that'll help kind of zero me back in on where my brain's going.
Well, I have a few questions.
Yeah.
Number one, where's the trail going to?
The trail, so I think it's on our park plan, isn't it? But basically it goes
It's in the
along
comp plan, yeah.
comp plan. It goes along the north side of 6th, and then as 6th continues to build out, it'll continue to get built out.
Yeah, but right now it's a trail to nowhere.
That
really.
is like every single
No,
sidewalk
actually-
we put anywhere. It's a trail to
So-
nowhere until it gets added.
There's actually a trail coming north from the west water tower
Okay.
that comes out to 6th Street. This would end and basically bring you back into the trail system into Thunderhill Park
Okay,
at
all
this
right.
point. But Josh is correct, it will eventually continue all the way on 6th, along that north side, all the way over to Naylor Avenue.
Okay.
Ultimately, when that neighborhood builds out.
And if it's not taking funds, the way you described it, Josh, from the school district and or the county,
I should say it's not taking existing funds. So the county's tax dollars wouldn't go down at all. This would be future funds that would get paid to the county after the TIF district is over.
okay, then I'll go to your recommendation where your last sentence says it would also allow the EDA to use their funds for other targeted economic development projects. I'd like to know what that is, what that list is. And then, because they're already sitting on, what, is it, I always say 600,000, but what's in that EDA fund? It's over $1 million maybe now,
So with the sale of the property today, we're just under $1 million.
just under $1
But
million.
it's between, it's kind of split up between the industrial park fund, and then there's the general EDA fund. But between the two, yes, it's just under $1 million for those two.
Okay, so that seems like a pretty substantial checkbook. I don't know what else we would, why we'd need to use other money that's there. And really, I still have a big problem with the EDA, often not the overall mission of the EDA, but the way that an unelected board is spending tax dollars that we are either giving them on a yearly basis, and or things like this for a TIF district. And then they're coming up with their own projects that seems to benefit them, but maybe doesn't necessarily benefit the taxpayer in a way that they want their taxes to be used.
Yeah, and I guess I would respond to that in that the EDA basically receives their powers both from you as a city council and from the state as to what an EDA is allowed to do, whose general mission, and they vary a little bit from community to community, but generally the mission of an EDA is to try to increase the number of jobs in a community, as well as just increase the general tax base of the community and help the community to grow. There are 2 city council members who sit on the EDA that can certainly, they have a voice just like all of the others. And in fact, they probably have a slightly stronger voice with the EDA many times, knowing that for a lot of things, they do need the city council's blessing to move forward with.
Many times, not all, but
And-
I don't want to get too
Yeah.
bogged down in there.
But I would just say you asked for a list. That is what the EDA is currently working through. I
Okay.
know that they're exploring everything from expanding the industrial park to potentially working with downtown businesses or lots to try to improve things in downtown. Right now, that's just the conversation being had at the EDA as to kind of what's next. And my hope with using a TIF district to pay for this trail is it would allow them to be able to maximize their current dollars to be able to continue their mission. Because I know different people have different opinions. I think that the industrial park has generally been a success if you look at it in the fact that I think none of those businesses may be out there if we did not, if the city, I didn't say it wasn't we, if the city did not have those lots available, I don't think any of those businesses would have been there. And I guess I'll point to the fact that there's been no developer that's come along to kind of expand on the back end. And so, but one of the powers that a city has when it does a industrial park expansion is we're not necessarily looking for a return on our investment on day one. In my opinion, the return on an investment for a city comes from the future tax dollars that would not have been created, or the future jobs that would not have been created had those lots not been available for sale. And so obviously how the EDA operates, it's under the purview of the city. And if the city wants the EDA to go a different direction than it is, it has that ability to. But this, I guess this is just my recommendation of how to proceed.
Sure. All right, so, and then I asked you before the meeting started if I could get a copy of what the total dollars will be over the 9 years from the TIF district that the city, we don't have, you said you'd look into that and get that number for
Yeah,
me, so-
that was a number that I can certainly.
Okay,
get
because
you.
I'm sure the
And-
general public will want to know, is it 1.3 million or is it 18 million? You
Yeah,
know,
no, that's fair.
So,
And I will say, and I know that, you and I talked about this, this is not approving anything tonight.
right,
This, for a TIF district to go into place, there needs to be a public hearing, or a public notice, that sort of thing. And so working through Ellers, I know they put together a really high level schedule that would potentially see a public hearing coming that first meeting in June, I think it was. If we decide that this is something we want to look into, and that sort of thing, and all that analysis would come with it. I mean, part of the TIF district is like, one of our representatives, likely Rebecca Kurtz, would be here presenting all of that information as to what we expect to get out of it, what that payoff would be, how the uses of those funds could go, that sort of thing. So that, yes, that is all part of that.
okay, thank you. And then my next question is why do we have to do a TIF district to build out a asphalt trail? I mean, it seems like if it's 380,000, that should be maybe part of just the general fund or an area that we should be able to prioritize within our budget meeting to say, hey, we're gonna be looking at this, we wanna do this, or bond for it perhaps, or it should be in our overall plan.
It could.
I'm just wondering if already we're in the situation to, and I'll just expound on Bruce's point a little bit, because he used me as a reference, which was true, about this padding. I'm just wondering if this isn't trying to somehow make we didn't have the 380,000 in our general fund, or won't have it over a series of years because of the police station and now the city hall and all these other things, that really should be our job to prioritize those to a certain extent. And if we can't get a payloader this year because it's $380,000, maybe we've decided that it's the trail. So I'm just wondering why it isn't in our general fund or in another fund, our park fund or wherever, that we could be using that to extend that trail, and that we have to go to this And I'm sorry that I sound a little pessimistic, but that's why I question these things. I don't know why we wouldn't have that available.
No, and I
Now
mean,
we have to do a TIF district.
I think if the city wanted to go the route of bonding, or the city, I mean, I would say it's the city, because the city, if the EDA was gonna borrow, they would need the city's permission. If we wanted to go bonding, that is certainly a route we could go. You're paying interest costs at that point. If the city wanted to levy for it, that is certainly a route we could go. This is just one option, and, in my opinion, it is a very good option that I don't think the city has ever really utilized for itself, at least as far as you know either, to utilizing a TIS district for itself to help make economic development improvements. And so, in this instance, the state allows for cities, counties to establish these TIF districts, to help capture the tax revenue to pay for stuff over and above the normal tax revenue that they would normally collect without increasing the taxes on that particular property. They are just more funneled to one entity instead of split between three. And this is just one particular route that I think is just worth considering to build this trail out.
That's a really good point that you just made there, because we're gonna give a tax increment financing to two buildings that are already I've seen plans of them. The lots are sold, these buildings are going in, everything's approved, I have mock-ups of it. So now, it isn't new growth that it's like we're rewarding them
We're not,
to build this.
they're not
this
getting
extra
anything out of it
extension.
though, Sean.
No, I know the business isn't, it's us though, but in fact, if we don't take this TIF money, the school district and the county will get taxes on those buildings that are gonna go up. So when we say that we're not taking money from them, we really are, because it isn't new growth that's gonna happen 6 months from now, or 8 months from now, because we create this district. That's the real idea behind it. Those buildings are already there. I've seen plans of them. I'm on the planning commission. They're gonna go up, and the school district's gonna get the rewards for that for the next 9 years, unless we do this TIF district. And then we're gonna take it, the city, and they're gonna lose it.
So.
And the county will lose
and
theirs, but.
I will say, I can't speak for the school district, but I know, my guess is that they would be generally supportive of a trail being put in there, because I know as someone who did a lot of running the last couple summers, ran down 6th Street a lot. There's a lot of people that get up and down that street without any sidewalks or trails. And so, in the past, the school district has generally been supportive of building out side networks for just pedestrian travel, knowing that people ride their bikes, whatnot, up and down trails. That, you are correct though, Sean, in saying that by us capturing the taxes, there could be up to 9 years, or however long it would take to pay it off, a number of years, where and I don't even know what the tax value they would be receiving from it, because I think they receive less in property taxes than we generally do.
But Ehlers will be able to tell us at the.
Ehlers will be able to should be able to
Okay.
tell us with the valuation of these buildings, these are the exact tax dollars we expect would have gone to the city, county, and school, that the city is able to capture for a temporary time to help pay for this public
And
infrastructure.
if it's only $380,000,
That's the trail, but there's this unknown extra money that's gonna go to the EDA to fund other economic areas.
well,
And my point is that it'll be interesting to know once we get that number, when we get that number from Ehlers, then we can really, it should be the school board, let's see how supportive they are for a trail. Do they want 1.2 million to put in their coffers and do something else? Or do they
wouldn't
want
be
to extend the trail?
would they get
I'm just
1.2
throwing out a
million?
number. We don't know what the number is. I wish we would've had that.
So,
Or
That's
four-
to make the trail.
well,
Yeah, but
So-
the
so-
high
so-
number I've heard so far is 448,000.
So, yeah.
You think they're getting a 1.2 million
I
taxes?
just threw out the number because I didn't know a number, but it could
Well,
have
look
been.
at the number.
Yep,
It
yep.
says 380, that's just for the
Well, and
work
then
of the
earlier you
trail.
said
But
400
we're gonna collect money for 9 years and the EDA is gonna get the rest of that money.
No, it ends at that. We don't get more money.
Yep, yeah, so we would have it set up that after you basically set those up so that once the project's done, and I think the state requires it, like, you're not allowed to just keep collecting money.
You won't get any more money after the 386.
Yeah.
Or once the 380 would be
380's
paid
done.
for, that
That's
kind
it.
of
That's
closes
your
it
For the
out.
cap.
trail. for
Huh?
for the trail.
Yeah,
Correct.
that's all we're doing.
Then why
with it.
is, I'm confused then, why does it say the last sentence in your recommendation that we approve this, it would also allow the EDA to use their,
Their
Wouldn't have to
existing
use
oh, they
their
would
funds.
use their funds for the 380,000, and they're
correct.
sitting on almost
Right.
$1 million
Yes, that's what that's.
for other targeted economic
Yeah, so
development.
they could use their existing funds for other projects.
Well, that's good to know, so the residents know that there is $1 million out there. If we really need this trail and want this trail because of all the reasons you said, the EDA could still put that trail in
Right.
They could spend the money
without
for
taxing
that.
and without
Or we could-
taking the tax dollars up to 386,000
You could build this out in 3 years and. do
from
it-
the school district and or the county.
Right, but you could build it out in 3 years too. There's
Yeah.
so much each year over 3 years. I mean, there's a lot of options.
You know, if I lived in Leisure County, I would say go for it. It's gonna be cheaper for me to do this than not doing it. The people in Scott County, they pay Scott County taxes, so
Right.
Scott County's not getting their portion of it.
Right.
So half of our residents are gonna benefit financially from
But,
doing this.
but in a way, those Scott County taxes are also then staying home instead of going somewhere else in Scott County to be spent.
And unfortunately, I don't just represent the LeSueur
Yeah.
South County side, I represent the
Right.
entire city, so, but.
But I mean, if, you know, I don't know what our percentage is, but on our taxes, what percent does New Prague get versus county versus state?
It's
could tell-
roughly, it's roughly 40%. It's like 40 counties, city, and then like
20, so you
for the
take
school.
20% of 380, oh, that's what the city portion,
Right. That's the school district
or
portion.
school district portion.
Was that roughly 73-ish?
Now, that's what I'm saying. It's not millions of dollars, it's thousands of
Okay,
dollars.
all right, well, it's tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, well,
But-
whatever, roughly 20% of that
And-
is $73,000, as Josh was saying, it's over 9 years.
Well, I don't know,
It's
does
not
that,
not a one-year
does
check.
that mean a new school teacher? Does that mean that they don't have to charge so much for parking at the high school? You know, that the school district can use that $73,000 or whatever it turns out to be,
That's not 1 year,
so.
that's spread over the length of the,
It's still money coming out of it.
right, but it's not 1 year, it's not like 73,000, that's a teacher's salary. It's, you know, if it's 9 years, it's
Again,
$8,000.
Right,
So it's gonna cost the school $8,000 a year, or $9,000 a
right.
year.
Again, we're making that decision for them when they would have captured it, well, we'll know the number exactly.
Right, but I'm just saying, it's not as big as numbers you think annually,
Okay, all right.
is what I'm saying. If it's 380,000 and they're talking a 9-year TIF, I mean, and that's all we're asking for. We're not asking for a $2 million TIF, we're just asking for $380,000 to do this trail.
Right, but when you guys already have money in your checking account of almost $1 million. In the EDA,
Well, EDA, I was gonna say, I wish I had the $1 million in
the
my
EDA checking account.
You got that money? Where is
But
it?
you two are the representatives.
I don't have it in my pocket.
So I mean,
That's
if
what
you,
I'm saying.
But let me.
Why don't you just use it to
feel
build
it's
that out?
important to say that, I mean, we speak about the money the EDA has, and they have money because they sold land, and there's cash there. But it's the returning of cash that the city council many years ago started the EDA with the land, the breeders and all that. So it's money that's come back in from the money the city put into it and the land. So it's not like it's a big, there's no profit being made. I mean, you mentioned that it's a success in the sense that we created jobs and there's that, but financially, we haven't made money on the industrial park. We're just getting it back from the land and the resources that was put into it. And it's being churned over and over again to other EDA projects and things like that. So it's not like there's not a profit that the EDA or unless the Chuck has made or anybody. But so it's kind of deceiving. So when you say the cash, yeah, we can stop EDA work or not have an EDA anymore and then take that money and use it for something else. City council can do that.
and we have done that, I think, in the past with some of those first years where we rated that.
I've not.
I have never seen
not
it as
since
big
I've
as
been-
$1 million.
Well, we raided the ambulance fund to buy that land for 1.5 million.
The-
I don't recall.
The initial
The
park right now.
The phase,
The
the final
industrial
phase,
park,
yeah. That's where we got the money from.
How about that first 10 lots or whatever? Was that just tax dollars out of the general fund that purchased that? Cause I don't think the EDA had the kind of money to purchase that.
No,
I mean, the breeders was bought?
Oh, I don't know about the first phase.
Yeah,
I have no idea how that was. I think that was borrowed against the utilities.
Utilities, I think, yeah.
Yeah, the utilities borrowed in the money.
Right.
So, but I think it's, I guess, unless I hear different, I guess we're looking to
If we wanna
maybe get a
kinda,
little bit more information on, right, Sean?
yes,
In
Yes.
early June?
yep, yeah, so I guess, yeah,
See.
if the city council's all right with it, just kind of moving forward to kind of start this process. Obviously, like I
Right.
said, we're not approving anything. In fact, we are on a very much a fact-finding mission at this
Yep.
point, and we'll get those analysis from Ellers, in early June, yes.
okay, great. And that'll give time to hear some,
Feedback.
feedback from
Oh,
the
for sure, yes.
residents.
But it'll also give you the numbers you're looking for.
Yes, thank you.
I think we should pursue it. I'm not excited about the school part of it. Scott County's been very supportive about any kind of economic development activity that we've done and partner with us. The school has been lukewarm, so I'm a little more concerned about that part of it, but.
Okay?
But yes, I'll vote for moving it forward.
Yeah, we don't
the
need a
next step.
vote. Yeah, we're just directing staff to go forward on researching it. Okay? We're not making any
Yep,
decisions.
I know.
Gotcha. So next, we got the scale pool, insurance pool. And based on reading this, it's saying you guys are recommending not to be part of the pool.
Yes, so I know.
Explain that, because it looks like the short term, it's a better deal, but what's the concerns long term?
Yeah, so kind of before you came back, Chuck, Scale, which is
See,
a BC, an unofficial conglomerate of all the Scott County cities, school districts, townships, that sort of thing. They started wondering, hey, like most of the communities are not in an insurance pool. They go out and they get insurance individually, like New Prague did before we joined Sourcewell here a few years ago. Pooling together over the last few years, talks have been real preliminary. Is this happening? Is this not happening? And for the city, at least, it's been more advantageous to kind of say, you know what, like, we'll keep playing along because the process isn't going yet, but as of right now, we're not jumping in because we're already part of a pretty large, stable pool that has a number of benefits to it. So just, was it last week, Robin? 2 weeks ago? Since the last meeting, we did end up meeting with the with Gallagher, who's kind of overseeing this process for Scale. And they did give us, if we were to join their pool, as of right now with their estimates, they think that it would be about a 5.7% increase for 2027 on our insurance. Now this, as you mentioned, Mr. Mayor, is significantly less than the cap that has been given to us at 19%. That's not the rate given to us. We're kind of make decisions based off of that because that's the cap. But that's kind of been the cap given to us by Sourcewell for 2027. These rates are basically based off of our scores for the last couple of years. If you remember right, we had a number of years where I think we were beating most communities in terms of insurance rates. And we did have some claims that they bumped us up. And so the last time we received any sort of analysis from Sourcewell was here last summer, I guess it was. And so we have not received any updated numbers from where Sourcewell thinks we're gonna come in. Now, as you read my memo, I do say, even though we are at a higher cap at Sourcewell, that I recommend staying with Sourcewell over Scale, and this is why. Right now, as the Scale pool is going together, one of the major bylaws that they're putting in, and I say they, it is Scale. So if you were to join, like, you are a sitting board member and one vote on the board. One of their points that most people are in agreement with is that they would want a 5-year commitment out of anyone who joins. From the time you join, whether you join now, next year, 2 years from now, they want a 5-year commitment to try to hold the stability of the pool a little bit. Sourcewell does not currently require that. Sourcewell does not require that you commit for a certain amount of time. part of this is also pairing with the next item where we are going to discuss going out for an RFP for a benefits provider, in that we have had people come talk to us about, hey, have you considered switching, like sales pitch. Robin and I get sales pitches all the time about everything. There are potentially other options out there that they'd mentioned, and maybe Robin even remembers what some of them are called, that aren't necessarily insurance how we are doing it. And I don't know, maybe Meg can speak to those. I know she was in the insurance industry for a while, maybe she can't. All that being said, if we were to commit to a scale, that kind of locks us in for insurance. And I would argue there may not be a reason to go out for benefits provider, because this is kind of the benefit we are now providing for the next 5 years through scale. And I think for me at least, it is that 5-year commitment initially right now without us getting to go out and see what else is out there that is keeping me on the fence of wanting to join. It is entirely possible we join next year. Like, we wouldn't be in on the initial build all the bylaws out, but you would still have a seat at the table once you joined. And so this isn't in any way locking us out in the future. It's just saying, it would say for 2027, even though you're dangling this potentially lower rate, it would be a smaller pool than what Sourcewell is currently part of. And there is just unknowns as this whole process is getting built out. And it's preliminary, but they're still trying to get this thing pulled together for 2027. That, to me, it just feels like staying with Sourcewell. The reason why this is before you now is we were told that we're at a drop dead, like May 15th, are you in or you out type of situation.
And they're not providing any cap on any of these.
They're not providing a cap. They're basically just, they're just
dangling.
I don't even know if it's Gallagher who's gonna run the numbers for him yet. That was just Gallagher's numbers. Because I asked him, I was like, we're currently getting told our old cap is this. Like, why are you giving us such a much lower number? And he said, oh, everyone runs their numbers a little differently. This is just how I run the numbers, would see you guys coming in at. So it's possible it could come in higher. It's possible it could come in lower once we actually joined. I just feel like, at least for this year, if we would like to explore another, because we've been with Gallagher for as long as I've been here, and it sounds like far longer. If we'd like to explore other benefits providers and what they may know about or have access to, joining the scale pool kind of nullifies that, because that really locks us in to joining scale for at least 5 years.
And they can't provide, obviously, finalized underwriting until they know who's in the pool.
Correct.
So, wow, that's risky.
And I do know, so I mean, from things I've heard, I know there's at least one other community in the pool, and I'm not going to name names, so as to put them out there. One other community who's in these numbers who said that they are not joining. They may join in the future, but that they are certainly not joining. I have also heard there's a couple larger communities outside of Scott County that are considering joining in. So there's just a lot of flux up in the air with scale, and it feels like we'd be locking ourselves into something that we don't know. We come in, they may have a successful first year, and maybe this time next year we say, hey, could you give us a quote and potentially write us in? And we would just come in on year 2. But saying no does not lock us out of any future scale. It just, I think, allows us more flexibility to explore what is out there, as well as let them kind of get their feet under them so we know what we're working with.
All right, because they don't even have a locked-in provider network, or,
Correct.
so all of that is in flux. Yeah.
So I would say to this point, if there is action to take, I guess I would just ask that council basically state that we do not want to join the scale pool for 27, so I can pass that along. Or if they would like to keep their hat in the ring, that does kind of move us into the scale pool. Or at least, I should say, keeps us talking.
But it also, oh, sorry, Josh.
No, I was gonna say, but it also basically, from what we're being told from Sourcewell, it allows them to take their cap off. And so if we end up with less than 19, it's not gonna matter anyway, but it would allow them to go higher than 19 because we're out there looking without giving them notice.
Got us over a barrel.
So that's what Gallagher's telling you.
This is what Gallagher
through
is telling,
Sourcewell.
yes.
But
Now-
the real issue right now is Scale is saying May 15th is our date to answer Scale.
Yep, so Scale is using Gallagher to kind of put all their stuff together and have been given the date of, hey, May 15th, so that way we're actually start able to pull numbers together and get better hard numbers to people.
No.
It's one of those things where I certainly understand the cost is way lower. I would just hate to lock us into a corner on something that it turns out in a year or two.
Yeah,
goes south.
unless they can say, hey, it's only gonna go up a maximum a year 10%. That's, you know, cause it's 5.7 this year, it could be 25% next year.
Yeah,
There's no caps in line.
there's just too much unknown
Right.
of the whole pool.
Yeah, they're
and-
starting a new
and-
pool and,
And providers and in
I assume that
plan
each-
benefits and,
you know, I'm assuming each city that goes in there or county and that stuff probably has a history on it that they can load into the pool and they,
Yep, yeah, so
Know what I
yeah,
mean?
they basically get their
Yeah.
claims data and that's how they
right,
figure
Yep.
out.
that's what I mean, claims data.
And, no, I know, they'd even mentioned too, was it gonna be a self-funded pool? I do know that they, basically as a pool, they're requiring a larger upfront payment, because obviously when claims come in January, you have to be able to
Right.
take those claims.
Yeah, they
So,
want the 3 months ahead of time so that they have funds to.
I will say, they're, like I said, for us and, well, we are currently the only one in a pool. I know, the city of Savage was also in the Sourcewell pool for a number of years, and they left because they really liked Health Partners as a provider. And when Sourcewell switched to Blue Cross here last year, they wanted to stay with Health Partners, so they jumped out of the Sourcewell pool. So I think we might be the only one left that's actually in a pool. For everybody else, like, they have had horror stories. Like, I know we've had 1 year with relatively bad rates here this last year. Talking to other communities, it's like every year, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15%. And so I think for communities not in a pool, they're salivating at the possibility of maybe trying to stabilize a little bit. Yes, we've had certainly a bad last year. We don't know where this year will be. Once it all finally comes in, if we end up staying with Sourcewell, but it just feels like there's more stability, shown long-term stability with Sourcewell at this point, that I would hate to get us out at a potential new thing that we just don't know about yet.
Okay. Okay, I guess I'll make a motion to, stay out of the Scale Insurance Co-op
For 27.
for 2027.
for 2027.
I'll second.
Okay, I got a motion, a second. Any other questions, comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? Okay. Next, benefit consultant RFP. I assume this is more of a due diligence to see if some of those sales calls you got are worth looking into.
Yeah, I'll let Robin take it.
Oh,
She had a whole presentation put together.
I know. I'm giving you 30 seconds. Let's go.
I was hoping a couple hours.
You need the teleprompters up or what?
No, I don't have a presentation, but as Josh prefaced in the previous topic, so Gallagher is our current agent of record. We've worked with them for many years. We had been contacted by a group, and then since other groups, and meeting with some, like Josh alluded to, one of the things I wrote down was something called Brain Shark, where they do some AI work, and I don't know that we necessarily are like specific to knowing what we want, and that's why we thought we should probably go out for RFP at this point. Gallagher has certainly served us very well, and just because we're going out for RFP would not mean that we wouldn't end up with Gallagher. Maybe we still will, but we thought it was our due diligence, which I think you may have already mentioned, Mr. Mayor, to conduct an RFP, and we can do so still this year with an effective date of July 1, 2026, which would still give us enough time for the renewal process effective January 1, 2027. So if you have questions, I can certainly answer them. Otherwise, I think I went over my 30 seconds.
32. Any questions? I don't have any issue with, do you need a motion to give you authority to go for the RFP?
Yeah, I would.
Okay, I'll make a motion to go out to the, for a benefits consultant RFP.
I'll second.
A second by Maggie Bass. Any other questions, comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? Okay. So there, you can see there's things in your miscellaneous section, so we'll just go with going around the table. Rick, do you have anything?
Nothing.
Bruce? Sean?
Nope.
Maggie?
No, sir.
Josh?
Right now.
Ken? Robin?
Just that you should be receiving your audit document shortly in preparation for the May 18th meeting.
Okay. Tim, anything?
I don't have anything.
Matt? Mitch? Brian, anything else? Patrick, are you with us? Got anything? Okay, the only thing I have is, I was looking at the Joint Powers presentation, and I know that their budget and that, something I would like to maybe consider and bring from it is maybe redoing the Joint Powers Agreement, because I'm reading it, and there's a section about the construction of the pool and all this stuff. I think at this time, we might wanna, you know, it's nothing pressing, but I think it's something that should we look at,
Just updated.
update it and see if it should be cleaned up to the point now that we've been having the pool and having the fitness center and things like that, and kind of tighten up the control of that, because, you know, I understand that when we went into it day one, we knew that the city was gonna help subsidize that, facility, but sometimes it feels like, from reading the minutes, it just seems like sometimes we are running our head into, they're making decisions from the school level. And it really should have been the joint powers making that decision, you know. And I'm gonna have lunch with Andy and kind of talk to him about it too, but just reading it just seems like it's outdated. And, you know, we don't need to have all the language in here about the building construction and what the city was doing and things like that. You know, that's water over the dam. So I just want to put that on the radar to maybe go forward, and maybe at the next joint powers agreement meeting in May 18th, that can be brought up. That is a suggestion that, you know, maybe we should revisit that.
Yep, I've got a note to do that.
So, okay, that's all I had. If not, Rick, you're going to do a motion for adjournment?
I move to adjourn.
I'll second it. Any other questions? If not, all in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? We're out of here. We'll give you 5 minutes to get out of here. No, and then we have a closed session meeting after this. Thank you, everyone.
You know, when I first came on